Professor José Andrés Muñoz. And I think what is especially interesting, I think, is that you have expanded the Gaia-X trust framework, so the common trust framework we know, and the rules you mentioned in the abstract, something about workflows, going beyond what we have right now. You remember in my hopefully inspiring speech, I was talking about the geographic and domain extension part. So I'm very much looking forward into your talk, how you are gonna extend the Gaia-X trust framework.
Thank you.
The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Well, I think I am in a dangerous presentation slot because I am between you and the lunch, so I'm trying to go fast and concise. So this is our presentation. This presentation is entitled Expanding the Gaia-X Trust Framework to the World, more or less. This is founded by the Cybersecurity Institute in Spain. And more or less, some of the team that that are involved in these initiatives, we are two professors with Joaquin and I, and also we have our expert in identity, that is Rodrigo Menendez, that is who is working with this workflow that I am going to present you in a few slides after. So we are a research group from the Technical University of Madrid. We have many research lines related with data spaces, AI, and many other things. We are also involved in some standardization committees and many other things that are related to data spaces. Our project is more or less referred to Eunomia, that is the god of the laws and the governance, that we want to put in place inside of the data spaces in this case. Our mission is to try to solve with some technical problems that we identify in data spaces related with self-sovereign identity, enforcement on policies, and many other topics that need to be developed more in the line of research, but also in the line of implementation in data spaces. In this case, this presentation is divided in two main topics. The first one is trying to identify the current specification that we have right now in the Gaia-X trust framework, and what is the thing that we consider that is missing and could be included inside of the specification. And a solution of that, we have presented some identity flows in try to solve these gaps in this case. The aim of the project is provide the intergalactical trust framework. It's not interplanetary because interplanetary is another protocol, so we want to go intergalactical in this case. So, as you know, Gaia-X has a very good approach because it's use self-sovereign identity in all of the stack of the Gaia-X. So this is a very good approach that has a lot of components that you have. The credentials, you have the DIDs, you have the verifiable data registry, and many other technical things that right now is working with the Gaia-X trust framework, but right now we want to expand a little more this functionality, providing a new feature, in this case, for this stack. As you know, Gaia-X has all of this part that is very close to self-sovereign identity. So in this case, we have credential, we have to provide credential, we have to verify credential, we have to present credentials, and all of the things related to credentials. So what is the problem? The problem is that according to the technical convergence, we have to work with some of the specification that is very close related to Europe. We want to expand this approach to providing also another players that could be involved in this case in the data spaces ecosystem. Players like Japan, China, and many other things that work with another specification, other standards on the other ontologies and other flows for the part of the identity. The aim is to have here Gaia-X and expanding to all of the rest of the ecosystem that could be here. So what we identify that is missing in this case, we have the Gaia-X covered, between other things, this aspect, as anchors, the registry, also have the verifiable credentials, the ontology, and many other things that all the stack of Gaia-X provides inside of the specification. However, for expanding, in this case, this stack, we identify that a dynamic protocol for verifiable presentation is needed. So the thing that we are going to present is some flow mechanism for doing this verifiable presentation, similar to an approach that is adopted by the W3C in the verifiable credentials API. We delegate all of these flows in something that we call GNAP for verifiable presentation. Well, in this case, GNAP for verifiable presentation is a mix between GNAP, that is the grant authorization and negotiation protocol, that is similar to, not similar, but is an evolution of OAuth 2.0, and with OIDC for verifiable presentations. So with this convergence between these two protocols, we simplify the flows for doing the presentation inside of the ecosystem. So in this case, we use GNAP for dynamical interaction between the flows and for the interaction with the Gaia-X registry and utilize its standards and ontologies. This paper was accepted in an international conference that will be presented in August in Leuven. The title of the paper, for who want to read it, is Next Generation Authorization for Data Spaces, an authentication flow based on grant negotiation and authorization protocol for verifiable presentation. It's GNAP for VP. Sorry. So this, I'm not going into the details about this, but it's a comparison between OAuth 2.0 and GNAP because, as I said before, GNAP is an evolution of OAuth 2.0. Take it all of the good thing and remove all of the bad thing of OAuth. So in this case, here we have two main things. That is the interoperability. That is one thing that we want to provide inside of the Gaia-X ecosystem to expand in the framework, and also that is extensible by design. That is another thing that works with the flow that we are going to present. Okay, we are revolutionary. We want to go to the last thing, that is GNAP, but we also provide compatibility. So our implementation is focused in provide a dual stack, more or less IPv4 with IPv6. We have this dual stack for compatibility, and also another method that is proxy translation if you work with OAuth 2 and you want to provide, in this case, GNAP service. This slide summarizes more or less features of our implementation, that GNAP for verifiable presentations, and what part of this feature is taken from the different protocols. For example, the negotiation between entities is from GNAP. The selective disclosure of the verifiable credential is from OIDC for verifiable presentation. And the trust framework integration is delegated to Gaia, GNAP, and OIDC. Here is more or less the motivation of how we want to include GNAP instead of OIDC for verifiable presentation because of these constraints that, in this case, we consider this is very limited for the ecosystem that we have right now in the data spaces. And now we are going to the technical part, that is the flow that we have defined. So in this case, we have two flows. The first is some that one that we call redirect-based interaction that needs to be initiated by a client or by a consumer. So in this case, we have some assumptions for this flow. We have, for one part, the wallet. We have the verifiable credential. And this is obviously issued by a global trust issuer. So the flow starts more or less like you can see in this slide. I know that this is difficult to follow, so I am going to make some presentation in the next slide with some transitions for trying to be more friendly in this case. So we start with the consumer. The consumer sends a grant request to the provider, then the provider sends a response to the same consumer. The consumer exchanges the URI to the wallet, in this case the wallet of the consumer, through the one little part of OIDC for verifiable presentation is sent to the provider. The provider, in this case, sends some validations to our stack in Gaia-X. In this case, the registry for checking the global trusted issuer list. Also, the verifiable credential status is if it is revoked or is active. Then the ontology, if it is correct for this player, could be European or other, and also summarize some validations from the credential and the presentation. Once we have all of this information, this is sent back to the wallet. The wallet makes a callback to the consumer that initiates the request and continue the request to the provider. The provider takes the last call and send the token to the consumer. This is the flow that we have defined with the join of these two protocols, and this is the solution. We start with some requirement, and we get the token for the identification in the rest of the flow. This is the first approach. This is transparent for the user. If I am lucky, I can show you the demo. So in the demo, you can see that you start a request and get a response, anything else. So the second flow that only going to present the big picture because I'm not want to go into the details. In this case, the second flow is more related to machine. If you have the case that you don't have a client that or a consumer that initiates the request, you can use this approach that is machine to machine, but also could be initiated by a client or a consumer or many other things. So we have the same assumptions, and we have, in this case, this flow. As I told you before, this is in a paper that will be published in a conference, so you can go more into the details or contact us for explaining more the interactions between the different components of the flow. So we have here the demo. I don't know how can put play on it. Oh, okay. Yes. Okay, no. So before to start, I wanted to explain this is a request that the consumer starts for sending to the provider, and he needs to include some things like the URL, the ID of the provider with added web, and also an action. This action in this case is a talk because we want to send a negotiation, not a presentation, not another action, in this case related to this example. After that, we will get some verifiable presentation definition. With this definition, we will have the client ID, we have the nouns of the verifiable presentation, and this will be put in the wallet. Once it's in the wallet sends the request to the provider sends back the credential, and we have to accept it if we want to present this credential or not, and we will retrieve the token. So this is the interaction that we will see in the demo. I explained before because I can't put a stop, so this is going in automatic. Okay. Okay. I don't know if I could. Okay. No. Okay. Yes. Okay. This is the request. This is the verifiable presentation definition with all of the parameters, client ID, and many other things. This is a wallet. We paste this definition in the wallet. The wallet sent a request for being presented. We accept the request, and we get the token. So, easy. All of these things is for this interaction. And we have this transparent to the, in this case, to the user, but we have the verifiable presentation with the credential that we have with the Gaia-X stack. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, José, for presenting another extension. You know that we have the eternal question of DCP versus OID for VC as on the credential exchange protocol, but apparently you are already thinking beyond that, including authorization. Thanks for that. Maybe I've made a note. Maybe we put that on the road mapping exercise for, I don't know, Gaia-X 2.5 or something like that. Thanks.